folks, and welcome to the Square D, the Jack the Ripper of GAA Analytics. My name is Conor Galvin, your host for this evening, and I'm joined, as ever, by the irrepressible professor himself and founder of GAA Pro Stats, Mr. Stephen O'Mara. Stephen, how's she cutting this 2024, baby?
Yeah, new season, new episode, slightly different look show. I'll let you see it for yourselves. Slightly different
Yeah,
layout.
you're looking good. You're looking good this year, my man. I had to laugh a few years ago when you started out on your stats journey. You were like the poor relation at Christmas dinner. Nowadays, you're like the king of Sheba. You're in high demand everywhere.
Yeah, well, as things have fallen, hence the new look show. I was involved with one team this time last year, and I was in year 3 where it was sort of easy street pre-season. I've managed to have landed with 3 teams as things stand, so hence the shorter, slightly more off the cuff show than last year. But hopefully we'll get a bit of good content in there.
Okay. So listen, we're gonna clip through this, right? A little bit different than last year, right? Like all of the screens and all of the stats, okay, are uploaded, right, at SOMARA GAA on the Twitter account. Okay, so anyone who's looking to decipher, right, an awful lot more detail. The content is there; it's live, right? So an awful lot of what we'll be referring to is already published on that handle, right? The SOMARA GAA. Now, listen, we're going up north first. I know the Donegal lads are getting excited there, talking about building their own Las Vegas and the hills of Donegal all over again. The old Tyrconnell boys, God love them. Division 2 run out up in Ballybuffet against the Cork lads. Long old journey this time of year. Cork up to Donegal. They got a decent hiding overall, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Look, I suppose I'll put Cork's best foot forward on this one first. If I put up this slide on the screen, we're going to see, look, expected score, and we always start with it. They're sort of, well, there is getting past it because it ultimately comes down to who kicks it but who doesn't. But in terms of expected score, it wasn't as bad as it looks. And in fact, at half time, it was an equal expected score, which is notable considering, for all intents and purposes, it appeared as though Cork were being battered. And look, when you're beating 120 to 2-6, yeah, have been battered. But there is an expected score there of 19.2 to 16.4. And if I was putting out Cork, the argument for Cork, I'd say McBrearty's goal comes late on. It was an equal expected score at half time. We'll look at that shot map in a second, but we'll have this slide up. The phases with shots ultimately probably tells the story, which is that Donegal got off 64% shots and Cork got off 43%. So look, to give that, it's, to give that picture, let's just have a look. I mean, these were it's an exceptional shooting map from Donegal. We see it here. I mean, that's an outrageous shot map, and you're not going to hit many of those. Bearing in mind, a lot of those were under pressure. Roran Doherty hit 2 under pressure. Outlandish out there on the left. Darrell Wheel had 1 or 2 like that. So there's Donegal's shot map. There's Cork's shot map. Now, look, notable. Someone made the point to me earlier. Wardy all from the left. Is there a strategic element there? Was it random on the day? I don't know. But
yeah,
they shoot outrageously. But ultimately, as we're going to see, they were massively ahead of the game, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, look at everyone. Everyone who follows the show will have some new viewers. Obviously, I mean, you live and die on your expected score versus your actual score, and then how many phases you have in the match. Like Donegal had 42 phases, right? Which under the McGuinness tenure. Now, as they progress the championship, here's the question I want to ask you, right? If Donegal are to beat a Dublin or a Kerry, okay, do you think they will need to limit how many phases, right, to try get that phase count down as low as possible against those type of teams? They're certainly not going to have 42 phases against either.
Yeah, well, look, you've alluded to the problem. I mean, 42 phases comes down to two things. There's a lot of turnovers, which largely was on account of Donegal's high press, which we'll look at. Also, they've won more kickouts, which are the two key things here. Look, it's the oldest saying in the book, you can only beat what's put in front of you. And Donegal did that with incredible efficiency, including shooting efficiency, but structural efficiency. Is it a game plan that's going to work against Dublin, Kerry, even Mayo? That, it's week one of the league. That it's going to be a whole different question, and we're going to see why. Here, look, they've got an expected score per 10 phases of 4.6. The average of the National League Division 1 last year was 4.4, so it's above that. Total score 5.5. But I suppose, the key, we just don't know. I mean, Cork, we're going to look at this. I mean, I'm somewhat mystified. I mean, I only saw 5 minutes of the McKenna Cup game, and it was obvious to me. Watching that Donegal have worked on trapping you in the corners, and it's something I'd be aware of, because I know some of the Glenties boys, and I would have been aware before we saw anything of McGuinness this year. I would have been aware that he has a view of modern football about contact and not letting teams, basically, for want of a better expression, fanny around on the ball uncontested. So I was interested to see how we bring that.
It's a technical term.
That's a technical term, yes. It was, and again, I go back as well to a Carlow Waterford game I was involved with a number of years ago, and with respect to Waterford, Carlow were far better footballers, but the way we were playing, it allowed Waterford to process, and their three key players make all the line breaks. And I remember thinking at the time, that was a wake-up call to me. And even by half-time, we said, right, let's push this more or less man-on-man and make it a gunslinging game of football. It's not how we're going to play Kildare or Meath or Dublin in the Leinster Championship, potentially. Didn't happen that year with COVID anyway. But, and that's the underlying philosophy, I suppose. And that's where McGuinness has taken this. Now, if we look at this, it was obvious to me, and this doesn't show it explicitly clearly, but if we see this image, like, if I'm watching Donegal, I literally saw 5 minutes of the McKenna Cup game. It's obvious they're trying to trap you down the channel. So 3 to 10 yards in from the sideline with severe suspicion. And ultimately Cork didn't, and paid a really, really heavy price for this. We'll see here. There are two key players in this. The keeper's coming out with the ball. You've number 4 here, left corner back. I mean, for me, the obvious thing here is, based on what I saw the week before, go out, carry the ball out, engage a Donegal player or two who think they're smelling a bit of blood, and arch back around on that arrow, play the ball across, in soccer parlance, the left full back. And that's why soccer needs to play over and back and over and back. This is rocket science. But he comes out, and he now has no trainer. There's nobody behind him because he's run into trouble. Now, give Donegal their dues. I can't actually see who that is. He's been offered a channel, but he's taken the bait. But what's exceptional about this, and this is, it's no rocket science to say Jimmy McGuinness is going to bring something different and maybe something completely new. The kind of Jurgen Klopp high press element here is watch Paddy McBrearty there on the 11 pocket just off the 45.
Yeah.
As soon, and this is what Jurgen Klopp, and everyone's trying to mimic it now. There's a bit of a bad pass. Somebody gets slightly cornered. The man in behind pounces, and you see McBrearty go. That is what Paddy would probably be known as an outlandish forward. This wouldn't be something that would be a natural part of his game, I suppose. But you see that McBrearty smells blood, and the keeper's in, and there's a turnover. So that, I would say, it was exceptional by Donegal in how they set it up, in how they executed it. But I thought it was thoroughly naive by Cork that they just took the bait for the first 20 minutes until a few players kind of realised, well, this keeps happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, a Klopp saying, he's always espoused that famous quote about how the greatest player is the one who can execute a high turnover, because you're always ever only one pass away from a goal, right? I suppose nuance led, McGuinness bringing that into the realm of Donegal this year is going to be very exciting. Oisin Gallen wasn't playing the weekend. Yeah. Your friend, that goal-scoring machine, that's going to add an awful lot of spice down the track as well, right?
Yeah.
Any other observations before we clip onwards here?
Yeah, obviously, again, look, from a Donegal point of view, I obviously know them significantly better than most people. Haven't worked there for 2 years. 3 or 4 boys, I don't know who they are. They're new. They look good. They look tasty. Again, just better footballers are on the field compared to last year. McBrearty's back. Patter Mogan's back. I'm sure, as I say that, I'm missing obvious lads. Michael Hangan has to come back. Oran Doherty is turning into, I would say he was probably Niamh Connell's key player in their run this year, where they were within a last-minute kick-out, a fingertip kick-out win, have probably beaten Watty Grange in the Ulster semi-final. Aaron Dock he is, because obviously my man Aaron Doherty only got a few minutes at the end. So watch this space. I'm hoping that Jimmy McGuinness sees what I think I see there. But it's positive. Probably the second key thing here as well. And I want to get up this diagram on the. The key thing I put up, I said on Twitter, is the fact that Cork actually made a loss off their own kickouts. If we take the one-dimensional stats, what you won or lost off your own kickouts, we'll need to get a few different shots up on this. Cork actually on their own kickouts, they won 20 and lost. They won 20 and lost 7, but they actually scored 4 points off their own kick out and they conceded 5. Now, that's just
and one of these things you were saying there, right, is Cork's actual kick out structure is somewhat antiquated. In terms of moving the players to all one side of the field and then trying to break.
I think it has a purpose. There's a time for it. It was a master stroke when Kevin Walsh pulled it against Kerry in the Super 8 2018. I was petrified looking at that 4-4-4 press. It's an antidote to a zonal press. And look, Donegal did have a zonal press, but if we look at it, there's Donegal's kickouts. They're generally hands and ball, and the ones they're losing dead square down the centre. Whereas we look at this is the pattern. Some are hands on ball, but a load of them are being banged to the left of the field. But the problem there, you see those ones that went to that weighted field. They've won 7 and they've lost 6. And I suppose the image I'm going to get up here for you probably explains it the most, because the way it's working now for me is that you're not really getting value off it, because watch what happens here. This image probably tells the whole story. Now, little play with geometry, I think, if I have the right subject. The way that ball is just up out of the sky. I mean, obviously the keeper can kick it at that trajectory, but there's an optical illusion. But the ball is just out of picture, i.e. It's left the keeper's boot less than a second. Ryan McHugh, who's on the 11 pocket, is already getting home. There's a Cork man on the D, has been cheated, which is to say that he could have been hit late, if not slightly earlier. It's 4v4 over here on the weighted field. But even if Cork win that ball, Ryan McHugh is going to be back, and you can see there's another Donegal man off pictures back already. So you're only getting the value of a shot.
You're going to hem them in.
Yeah, Donegal are going to have a sweeper by the time Cork have won, unless there's an exceptional punch down the line or something. Donegal, they're only getting the same value for winning those. And what did they win? 7 out of 13. Won 7, lost 6 of those. They're only getting the same value as if they got it to the D, and they're losing 6. And again, so that's the last feature. So this is something.
Is that somewhat experimental from Cork? I mean, last year they went short.
No. This was their primary modus operandi. This isn't new at all. This is what they've been doing, and I mean, look, it has Kevin Walsh's stamp all over it. There's no two ways about it.
And against Roscommon last year, they got a lot of hands on ball. Obviously that was played in the raging heat. That was as good as it got really for them.
Yeah, and again, in that game, yes, but there were other games where they went into that. Now it worked to an extent, but a key point I'll make, and this is the second last point I'll make on this before I go on to this chart I've put up in front of us, is that modern football, and I hark back to that Donegal Derry Ulster final that I was involved with as an analyst. I didn't hear the negative rhetoric from analysts. That was the most offensively efficient game in the history of football. Derry scored 6 points per 10 phases. Donegal scored 5.5. Getting hands on ball and kickouts was just so valuable. And if you're looking to compete with those teams and beat those teams, you've really, unless there's implied odds, I mean, banging it long straight down the middle can have value depending on the press, depending on the wind, depending on how good your centre forward, your inside forwards are. But broadly speaking, if you've got to be for me, you've got to have a kick out where you know you're getting hands on ball 80, 85, 90% of the time. And while I think there's days where that weighted field works, this chart is going to show here, if we look at our table mode very briefly, it looks like a maths assignment here, but I'll talk you through it. Like Donegal have scored 1-4, the orange brownie colour here have scored 1-4 off their own kick out and conceded 0. Cork have scored 4 and conceded 5 off their own kick outs. But if we actually look, and obviously this is as much to do with how the game played in general, if we look at the first turnover, so the first possession each on kickouts, Cork have scored 4 and conceded 11. So they're now, look, that's half kickouts, that's half just the way the game was. But look, I think Donegal were going to win that game regardless. And look, the high press for the value it had for Donegal, they let in 2 goals off it, and that you've got to take that on board. That's something they'll be looking at. But yeah, for me, Cork need to be playing the ball out of the back better against that Donegal press, as good as Donegal's press was. And I think there's got to be more hands on ball there as well when the need arises.
Yeah, look, I mean, it is Division 2, right? So in terms of where exactly Donegal are at, we're not going to know until the Derry match, realistically, in that quarter. See, okay, what exactly are these guys made of? And maybe in a similar vein, with Derry under Mickey Hart, which is where we're going to move on to next. Derry making the pilgrimage down to Austin Stack Park. Pretty unusual. Obviously playing the 3 Glen lads the weekend. We already know, they really operate off a small panel. But in addition to that, I mean, Derry only made 2 changes the weekend, right? This is where I can see the wheels coming off the wagon, right? It's such a small panel. They've, immediately shoehorned the Glen lads back in. They were class operators, right? Don't get me wrong. The Derry starting 15 is dynamite, right? To get McAvoy back in there, the fullback, right? The dynamism everywhere. But my God, it's threadbare what they're trying to work off,
Yeah. I mean, I haven't given much thought to that. It was a surprise for sure. Not beyond reason. I mean, there is a Jack O'Connor, Mickey Hart thing there, and as little I think as Kerry concerned themselves with the first 3 games of the league. I got a sense Jack probably thought they were going to win it when they got the second goal and didn't look overly happy. Maybe Hart is thinking, well, we'll get them in for the Kerry game and give them their break then. It's not beyond, it wouldn't be an irrational thought. An extra week isn't going to kill them. Let them celebrate for 3 days. An extra week won't kill them. We'll give Kerry a good crack. Maybe set down a marker there. I don't know. But definitely, I mean, yeah, Derry wouldn't have the kind of panel Kerry or Dublin have. I think that's probably fair to say, albeit there's some new fresh boys coming in there. Yeah, look, it's an interesting dynamic. I suppose in terms of the game itself, to go after the summary here, if I can get it on the screen here. Notable thing, there was a misperception about, I had cause to study Tyrone in depth for one particular game. And I mean, when I say in depth, I mean really, really in depth a couple of years ago. And contrary to common perception, Mickey Hart and Rory Gallagher's styles wouldn't be as similar as people think. There was this perception that Mickey Hart was slow and laboured. Once Mickey Hart's Tyrone faced the blanket defence, it was 45 degrees off the shoulder. There was rarely more than 10, 15 seconds before they had a pop. It wasn't overlap. It wasn't left, right. Take 7 minutes to score if we need. That wasn't the way. So it's going to be interesting how this molds. And if we look at this figure, now it's against Kerry. It's brutal conditions. And I haven't done my homework and checked what it was in the semi-final last year. But I think it was a classic Derry that they've only got shots off in 59% of phases here. That's exceptionally low for what we've come to know of Derry in the last few years. They've won the game. Again, I come back to expected score. Derry had an outrageous day of shooting, which we'll look at in a second. 13.8 to 7. Kerry 17. Kerry missed some awful shots if we're to call a spade a spade. So, all things being equal, Kerry probably shot that game away. Derry's phase of possession to shot ratio isn't what it generally would have been. Obviously, I'd be delighted with the win, and you go down and you beat. You can see you go down to Kerry. You come out with a win in any circumstances, even if it's Kerry's first league game. It's a good day, especially when you can see 2 goals. It's a really good day.
Not only that, it's the first time Kerry have lost a league game, and on the opening night since 2015. Down there, so they're not used to getting hammered. But the one feature I'd say to you, right, it was very disjointed and fragmented. Like, it was fairly frantic from Kerry. They're lacking composure. Now, look at this golden generation of Kerry players have been in 4 All-Ireland finals. They've only won 1 of them, right? That's the raw stats. So they're now heading into a very big season for them, right? The pressure is on. Make no mistake about it. Like you mentioned, Jack O'Connor didn't look happy. Jack O'Connor never looks happy, right? But
I wouldn't say that now. I think a bit harsh there.
Maybe he hides it well. Yeah. Well, maybe that's just his nuance,
Go on.
But this is a big year for them, and it's one of the most telling stats I saw. Obviously the GA. The team expenditure figures came out there. Derry were the 3rd lowest in the country. They had the 3rd lowest budget. Kerry obviously are way up there. Kerry spent over €2 million. Derry only spent 700,000. Right? Yet look at the standards Derry have reached. Right? With a shoestring budget. It's absolutely phenomenal. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Now, you work in finance and I don't. I'm not making any suggestions.
Yeah, but you know the difference
about Derry, but I wouldn't say necessarily every euro is accounted for. Looking at some of the figures of certain counties, but
is this the money was only resting in my account for or Ted stuff?
As I say, you work in finance, I don't. I wouldn't be happy if I put it like this: if I had a club team hit the shot map like that, maybe okay. You can have 2 million or 20 million, That's not a Kerry-like shot map for me. The rectangle, the triangles are marks. The squares are frees, and the circles are from play. That's not a classic Kerry shot map, And again, Derry, and we go back to the game last year against Dublin, and there's maybe a financial conversation. It was every single cent accounted for in those Dublin accounts. Who's to say? Derry had a shot map like this against Dublin in the league last year.
Conjecture, Your Honour.
That's an absolutely uneducated comment, incidentally. Just in case anyone says anything different, that's a throwaway pub talk comment. Lest I hear any more of the conjecture. But like Derry,
the opening night of Square Day, and you just couldn't help yourself.
I just couldn't help myself. Point I'm making. Look, Derry were, you beat Kerry, it's great. In terms of the stats and what I've come to see of them, it wasn't probably their best performance, but they did enough right. And I got the great when they were down to 14 and then let in a goal, and it was not now to be harsh on referees, but it was a fairly blatant push in the back on Brendan Rodgers by my take. But again, that was, Kerry scored 1-2 off those high turnovers, which is really notable. Again, you look at this, and this is a trend, because as things stand, the average amount of turnovers in the opposition's half in intercounty football is 2 a game, and you see here Kerry have got 5, and I think they're all maybe in the second half, or 4 of them are 1-2. The greens turned into points. The green with the black circle around it turned into goals. So look, notwithstanding the fact that Brendan Rodgers, I think, was fairly blatantly pushed in the back, they won't be happy with that. But look, they got a result. It's the first game of the league. Derry will care about that game much more than Kerry will. But notably, the figure the phase of possession, the shot ratio, and the expected score per shot. Like a low game for Derry last year was 5 per 10 phases. And I'm looking at this here, and their expected score was 4. Their total was 4.4, which is bang on average, but it's not what Derry would have been doing. Look, it's windy. It's very windy.
Yeah.
It's in Kerry away. It's away, and they'd be delighted.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, the lack of composure, I mean, even the last play of the game, I mean, the whole thing was get the ball in Seanie O'Shea's hands, right? Get the ball in the Kill Machine's hands. Instead of that, you'd Shane Ryan, the goalie, ballooning an air ball up into the night sky, you know. Total and complete lack of composure, you know.
Yeah, look, the last play probably...
It's quite unusual, actually. You know, you talk about the league and the championship, you know. Even if you look at the betting odds and the bookies before the thing started, like, I mean, Derry were favourites, you know, to win the league at 11-4. I mean, even Mayo were in at kind of 4-1, right? So your league odds are way out of sync. Now, what I mean by that, I mean, Mayo to win the All-Ireland this year, like, are as far out as 9-1, right? And you go back from that, I mean, even Donegal, it's 18-1. The funny thing is, as much as you talk about, like, these are money markets, right? We're not getting into that in a big way, but this is where fellas are putting their money where their mouth is. And if there is a big disparity between league and championship, it does carry over into what we're really looking at, you know, down the final furlongs, when the bat is in the fire versus,
well,
you know.
I'd say, in general, and within the context of this game, it's hard to say. There is a theoretical possibility that getting relegated out of Division 1 could put you in the Tailteann Cup. That would mean a load of Division 3 and 4 teams reaching provincial finals. But the league has more of especially Division 2, but even Division 1, managers will be thinking a year down the road, do I want to be going into next year's National League needing to come in the top 3 or 4 to be guaranteed a place in the All-Ireland? Nobody wants to fall into that Meath bracket. But I mean, in terms, again, if we look at this game in this context, and we look at what Derry are doing. Like, I did the Louth Offaly game last year, and I mean, Mickey Hart brought the same kick-out strategy he had with Louth in Championship last year to this game, and we'll see there what they've done. They forced Kerry long on a lot of them, and they've won 5 out of the 6 they did force them long on. And when we see here, you know, this is what they did. Now, you could do a 10-minute piece on this, but the nuance is the keeper's out. Now, here, going full circle on the show, Kerry started with what looked like a kind of a normal shape, but they pushed to one side to try and beat the zonal press. But ultimately, what's really good about this is the fact that it goes in the air. But Derry forced them long, but they still have the man left and right getting back. Now, ultimately, look, did they get value off it? Probably not, because Kerry got a goal off a long kick out. But in the context of that question, in the context of Mickey Hart, it would appear to me, having done a good in-depth analysis on the Louth Offaly game last year and the Louth Dublin game, he brought his championship kick-out press. So I would say, and he said it in his book, Kicking Down Heaven's Door, a great read, 20 years old at this stage, that he loves to create a culture of winning, even McKenna Cup games, and you see that in how many McKenna Cups his teams have won. So I think of all the managers this weekend, the two that really would have wanted results were Ricky Hart and Jim McGuinness, which is why we've covered those 2 games. But I don't think there was shadow boxing there by Derry. I think they wanted to win that game. Obviously, if they brought the 3 Glen boys back in.
Excellent. Okay, you happy enough?
I'm happy.
Superb. Right, just as a finale, right, we're running, obviously, next Thursday night, a masterclass on GAA Pro Stats, okay, which will be an in-depth look and analysis at exactly how all these stats are arrived at, what conclusions you draw, and what benefits and positives it'll have for your club or county team. That will be certainly something we will look forward to. Professor, you're going to give away some state secrets in that show. Are you nervous?
I hope I don't have to shoot anybody after I give away the secret. So be careful what questions you ask. We're not quite on the 300,000 views you had on Tuesday night, but we're getting there slowly.
Well, Kim Jong-un in North Korea is famous for feeding his uncle to the dogs, you know. So if we can keep it out of that, we'll be doing all right. Well, listen, that's all we have time for. As I said, all the captions, right, and screen grabs are up there in Esomara GAA. And we'll see you all on Thursday, and keep her lit.